Most confusing video I've ever watched. Too much waffle. Too much waffle? Waffle. All right, guys, I have some questions that I need to address. So I had posted a video a few months back about why I had returned my 4K monitor and switched over to a 1440p monitor instead. And when I posted that video, I did not expect the amount of traction it would gain. So that video now has gotten up to a little over 300,000 views, which for a channel of my size is pretty great. No complaints. Definitely no complaints. Thank you to everybody who watched that and the people who subscribed because of that video, or, you know, just anybody who watched it, commented, liked, all that kind of stuff. Because that video got so many views, it definitely, you know, had a ton of positive feedback and also a ton of negative feedback, questions, comments, concerns, and I responded to comments every day for a while, and they just kept coming in, and it's still going up in views. So it became a little bit harder to stay on top of answering all the questions that you guys had. So this video right here is to address questions, comments, concerns, and also just to toss out some funny ones for you. I made that video because I had bought a 4K monitor for my M1 MacBook Pro 13-inch, the original one, and I had some performance issues when trying to scale certain things and use certain programs. Now, I thought I did an okay job at explaining it. If you didn't watch through the whole video or you jumped around a little bit, there may have been some things you missed, and there was definitely probably some things that I missed as well. So we're going to address kind of the most popular questions. I don't have time to go through 1,400 comments and answer every single one in this video, but I kind of gathered the most popular questions, and I'm going to try to articulate an answer and explain some of these things for you guys. So first and foremost, one of the most popular comments amongst the more negative side was, switch to Windows. Why'd you return the monitor and not the MacBook? Sounds like you should have returned the computer and not the monitor. No shouting. You do not have a problem at all when you use Windows OS. Another limitation from the Apple OS. Sounds like another reason not to buy an overpriced Mac. Funny how Windows has zero issues with this. I mean, there were hundreds of comments like this, and while some of them weren't as aggressive, and to those ones I want to just address, I understand, but there are people, including me, who are comfortable in the Mac ecosystem and enjoy using it a lot more than Windows. I personally have no problem with Windows machines, but currently macOS is where I am sticking. It's where I've worked for years. I'm comfortable on it. And also I use programs that are native to macOS. And while yes, I could switch, I'm a firm believer that Final Cut Pro is, at least for me, the best video editor and the fastest one to get out content for things like YouTube. Some of the other things that I saw in the questions and the comments were questions about other sized monitors. And I did address this a bit in the other video if you watch all the way through. So a lot of the questions had to do with 32-inch monitors, and while they are a different story, if we look at this chart here, technically, yes, they are still in the bad zone. The best way to go if you want 4K is to either go down to a 24-inch or up to a 34-inch, and that's where you kind of end up in the good zone of the scaling and the resolution. Now, this is all subjective again, and that's kind of another topic I wanted to touch on here. Is there were people who either commented that they had no issues on their system, or they asked, you know, am I going to have the issue in this certain scenario? And it's going to be different for everybody. And again, this is something I touched on in the last video, but when I really noticed this issue arising, I was using Blender, which is a 3D software. I was already taxing my GPU, and I know that I was running this on a, you know, lower end MacBook that wasn't really made for 3D rendering and heavy GPU tasks. So I definitely had a more exaggerated version of this issue. But if you're using Microsoft Word, or you are doing, you know, coding, text work, or even light photo editing to heavy photo editing, honestly, you probably wouldn't see any issue with a 4K monitor running at 27 inches or at any of these, bad zone resolutions because you're not already taxing your GPU. Whereas I was pretty much, probably using most of the GPU power already in Blender. However, my issue at the time was I got the bigger monitor pretty much strictly for Blender. I was able to edit on my old one video and photo, and I didn't have an issue with any of those things, but where I needed more space was in those 3D softwares. So for me, it was best to get slightly less resolution, because if I really needed the resolution, the MacBook had it. And for 3D rendering and video editing, I get enough of an idea of how it looks even being on a 1440p monitor. I wasn't having a lot of issue. I don't do a ton of text work, so while I definitely can see the degradation in quality of blurry text and all of these things, it was a trade-off I was willing to work with. So, and bringing up that's another thing, which was a lot of people saying, is the text blurry, or this causes super bad resolutions, how do you even see this? And again, for me, it wasn't a big enough issue to where I couldn't use it. Most of the things I do are video or 3D or music production where, yes, there's text involved, but it's not something that I'm staring at and typing all day. So if that is your situation, then you probably want to think about a higher resolution monitor compared to the size of your monitor. Jeez. I can't speak at all, ever, just to put that out there. So I had one question here really quick. Are the colors really good on this monitor? And the short answer is yes. There's a reason I stuck with the Asus ProArt monitor even when going down in the resolution, and it is because it is made for creative work. It is color calibrated at factory. It is 99% accurate, I believe. It's going to be one of the really nice colored monitors that you can trust a lot more than, just a gaming monitor or just any run-of-the-mill computer monitor. I had a question here that says, did you use the display port? With the display port to USB-C, it's much better than HDMI. I think what they're asking is, was an issue with the cable. I used HDMI, DisplayPort, and DisplayPort over Thunderbolt, and all three had the exact same issue. I did a lot of troubleshooting before I went and posted that video just to make sure I wasn't the issue. It definitely wasn't the cable. Now you can get, worse performance depending on your connection, but that was not the case in this scenario. All right, let's run through a few more of these here really quick. This person says, or you can just leave it as is and have a little bit smaller UI elements and text, right? Correct. You could use it as just a 4K monitor and not scale it. For my comfortability when using the screen, having it at 4K was very uncomfortable to use. Everything was so tiny. Now, another question that came up a few times was, if you got a bigger monitor and made it 4K, could you just leave it? Because technically that makes everything a little bit bigger. If you had a bigger 4K monitor, you could probably leave it there and it'd be fine. But at 27 inches, I did not find it comfortable to use, in my opinion. So this guy says, something I don't quite understand is, if I get a new MacBook with promotion, will a 60 hertz display defeat the purpose? I don't actually quite know what purpose you're asking. If it's like, if you get a 60 hertz display, will it defeat the purpose of using your MacBook, because it technically has up to 120 hertz with the new ones? No, it won't defeat the purpose. I think 60 hertz is just fine, especially for just, work that you're doing for professional work or text, video. I mean, there's a lot of things that 60 hertz is just fine. I have never had an issue with the 60 hertz on this display, so I don't think it defeats the purpose, but that is kind of up to you to decide if you really want that 120 hertz refresh rate. And this question says, what issues did you have getting the monitor to work with MacBook Pro? I've heard there may be some issues. Please explain. Thanks in advance. I'm not sure if you mean issues aside from the scaling issues that video is about, but in terms of just getting it to work, as in, plugging it in and getting it to connect, I didn't have any issues. I never have. I've had to change some colors around sometimes to get things to match up better, but it's always pretty much connected right off the bat. So I hope that answers that question. Please tell me this the easy way. What monitor should I buy for my MacBook Pro M1? I do video editing. There's no easy way to answer that question because there are so many factors that run into it. First one is budget. Second one is what size do you want? Third one is, what resolution are you comfortable using? Fourth one is, how heavy of video editing? Are you going to be using all the GPU? And then if so, go look at the last video. And this kind of is one that a lot of people said. I bought a 27-inch 4K. Everything works fine. I don't even scale it. Everything renders at native resolution and is not too big or too small. Awesome. If that works for you, 100% roll with it. And if you're not doing things that are causing the GPU to get overrun, kudos. Also, if you don't have an issue with the native size of 4K at 27 inches, then again, awesome. I wish that I didn't, because I like 4K, but I don't want everybody to think that you can't use that resolution at that size ever. It totally depends on your use case and your preferences and how you like to work. Based on this conclusion, would 5K actually perform better than 4K? Yes, 5K is going to be double 1440p. So at 27 inches, 5K is, in my opinion, like the best resolution for that size, and Apple agrees. That's why their 27-inch external monitor is 5K. Does this apply to the M1 MacBook Pro 16-inch? Technically, yes, it applies to really any Mac computer, I believe, because you have double the GPU and your CPU is even more powerful to take some tasks off. You might have better luck with the M1 Pro 16-inch. So it does apply technically, but you probably won't see anywhere near the issues that I was having with the original M1 MacBook Pro 13-inch. Most confusing video I've ever watched. Too much waffle. Too much waffle? Waffle. Why don't you just run the monitor at 1440 resolution with no scaling rather than at 4K with 1440 scaling? Monitors don't need to run at their maximum resolution. I don't want to say you're wrong, but since resolution is a physical attribute to a monitor, I would have to disagree with this comment at least a little bit, where if you're running at 1440p resolution on a 4K monitor, you definitely are scaling it in some way, shape, or form, because you can't change the true resolution of a monitor. Those are physical pixels. That is a built-in part of the monitor. It's not software, it's hardware. So I would say this is technically not entirely right, but I don't know exactly in what way you're talking about. So we'll just push that one off. So basically that's going to be it in terms of like the main questions. I just wanted to address, this GPU on lighter tasks, the blurry text, other monitor sizes, and the switch to Windows comments. So that's where I'm going to leave it today. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, feel free to leave a like or a comment. And for everybody who has subscribed or keeps coming back, thank you very much. After that 4K video, this channel has kind of started to grow in a much faster fashion than it normally has. So I appreciate everybody who has been making that happen. And let's try to keep it going. I seem to like the tech and the gear of all my hobbies more than the actual hobbies themselves. So I can definitely keep putting these videos out. With that being said, thank you guys for chiming in. I hope everybody has a great day, and I also hope to see you in the next video.